active. That's Ikoke Jimmy. I don't know if she's online for opening remarks. Jimmy. Okay. All right, since she's not on yet, so let me just move briefly to our panel discussion, introducing the panelists. So when she comes around, she'll take her remarks. All right, our first speaker for today will be, she is a civil servant, the founder of Royal Pearls Network, a non-profit organization aimed at empowering and building young women so they can unravel their hidden potentials. The organization possessing godly virtues and becoming better women in the society. Our organization embarks on various program projects that is geared towards empowerment, mentorship, self-development, and charity, with target locations such as the orphanage, schools, IDP camps, and community in rural areas. She's no other person but Mrs. Ikea Iguno Lucia. I don't know. Sorry if I've pronounced your name wrongly, but I know as Mrs. Lucia. You're welcome, ma. Are you online with us? Mrs. Lucia, can you give us a hi? Okay. Moving forward to the second speaker for today is Mrs. Sheung Olagunju Lano. She's a global development practitioner, the founder of the Development School Africa, TDS Africa. Our organization is a platform that educates young people in Africa on sustainable development. She's also a global youth ambassador for The Award. The Award is an international NGO that aims at ensuring equitable, inclusive, quality education for children and youth globally. Mrs. Sheung, say hello to us.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you, ma. You're welcome, ma.
Thank you.
And our third speaker is no other person than our own Miss Deborah Oshomo, an international educator, speaker, and EdTech enthusiast. She's also the founder of the Purposeful Educator, which is a virtual career development academy for educators who are ready to become catalysts of change inside and outside of the classroom. She's focused on redefining the teaching profession in Nigeria, and she also runs an NGO focused on providing resources that help in filling the learning gaps for both educators and children in the West African region. Ms. Deborah, kindly tell us an hello.
Hey everyone, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Right, thank you, you're welcome. It's good to have you all here. I guess our Mama Jimmy is back online. Can you please give us a welcome address now?
Good evening, Tosan. Hello, everyone. My sincerest apologies for tuning in late. Let me begin by appreciating you all for being present at this gathering. I welcome you all to the second series and the final series of our virtual advocacy program for SDGs Advocates FCT group. under Sustainable Development Solutions Network. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. As we all know, we began this session yesterday and the conversation was wholesome. We've been discussing the topic, ensuring a safe and conducive learning environment for children and youths in Nigeria. We have been able to assess so far how important it is for children and youths to be exposed to quality classroom, settings, environments that would foster better learning systems for them and better, more enhanced learning capabilities for them. So basically, so far we've had such a great conversation and we're here again for the continuation. And I just want to welcome you all and appreciate you for being a part of this program. Let me also recognize and appreciate our guest speakers. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here. We look forward to all that will be discussed, all that will be shared. And we trust that at the end of this session, we would have had an amazing time together. Thank you, Tosan, for moderating the session. I trust that you will lead us through the session successfully. And to the leadership of Sustainable Development Solutions Network, I appreciate you for the opportunity and for the platform given to ABUJA SDG advocates to host this program. On behalf of all FCT SDG advocates, once again, I welcome you all and I declare the session open. I will now yield the microphone back to Tosan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Jimmy. Thank you so much. As we all see, we can also hear and listen to the profile I just read concerning our panelists. We can see that they are all engaged in the education space, and that will be a very good one for us this evening. And we are going to be learning more from them. So going to our first speaker, Mrs. Lucia. Are you on with us, ma'am?
Yes, I'm here. I'm so sorry. I was just trying to see how I could put on my mic, but I was having difficulty in doing that.
Oh, no problem. So I have just few questions for you, ma.
Okay.
Going to the first one tonight. I want to ask you, are there significant differences in the learning environment of children and youth in public institutions from those in private institutions in Nigeria? What are the differences?
Well, I feel there are differences. I believe that there are differences. The two environments are totally different environments. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The two environments are totally different environments, the public school and the private school. Now, I went to a private school, and okay, my secondary school was a private school, primary was a private school, then university was a public school. So I can say that the two are not the same, actually. Being in a private school, there's access to resources and facilities. But in a public school, it's funded by the government. And then, people have this mentality that the government, they usually don't take government projects seriously. Now, they are not funded adequately, those public schools. But the private school, because it's a personal property, the owner of the school tends to, pump in money there and provide the necessary things needed for the child to learn. Now, apart from the resources, apart from having the laboratories and, having the libraries for students to be able to use, in the government school, you don't see that in most cases. And even if there are libraries, but they don't have the necessary, materials to make it function. I don't know if you understand. Then another thing is the class size. About the public school and the private school. Public schools, there are usually a lot of students in the classes. So there's no personalized learning experience. Like you can have in a private school, you can have like over 100 students in a public school. While in a private school, you can have maybe, in fact, now I think it has come down to about maybe 20 students in the class because they want the students to be able to interact with their teacher one-on-one. They want to have this personalized learning experience. But we don't see that in the government school because there are a lot of people that, put their children in those government schools because that is what they can afford. But then, students need to have a one-on-one interaction with their teacher. And in terms of the class size, it doesn't allow that. So the child is just one person hidden in the crowd, not, being able to share that one-on-one experience with the teacher. So that is one way. That's another way that there's a difference between the private school and the public school. Now, another thing is access to funding. The government funds the public school, while the individuals or non-profit organizations fund the private school. Now, looking at funding now, from 6 years, that's primary school, 6 years and 3 years in junior secondary, the government is supposed to provide universal basic education for the students. But how are we seeing that free education? Are we seeing that in Nigeria right now, based on the aim of that intervention project? We're not seeing that. So that funding aspect is really lacking in the public school. So with that, without funds, there's no way you can provide those necessary things for the students to use. They don't have enough facilities. They're not equipped. So how can students learn in such an environment? But with the private school, there's access to funding. Funding are usually based on maybe the tuition fee or maybe gotten from grants and the rest. But the funding aspect is one thing we need to look at, to trash out in dealing with this public school thing. I feel education they said basic education should be from primary school to junior secondary, and then there should be provision for it. We're not really seeing that. They're talking about the TED fund. TED fund is for the universities rather. Those funds are supposed to be made available for the universities, and it's supposed to be 2% of the profits gotten from companies. The FIRS are the ones that handle that education tax fund from those companies. But then when we are talking about the efficiency of such a fund, we don't really see that in most cases. Now we are seeing ASU and the government going back and forth, fighting and no, because of their needs that are not being met. So these are the issues that we need to really trash out. Now, one other thing is extracurricular activities in the private schools. There's a lot of that, but in the government schools, the activities are limited. Students can pick out a lot of activities that they can engage in, because education is not just about going to go and learn maths, English and all that. There should be other activities too that will interest the child, that will make the child want to feel, okay, I like going to school. It's more like having an area of interest for the child, because the child should also pick one or two things child can actually do. So it's not just about making it strictly academics. It shouldn't just be that. So having those extracurricular activities can help the child to develop well and help the child to enjoy being in school. Then one other thing is the teaching experience. For if you notice, for private schools, they are usually very what's the word now? They are very deliberate about the teachers they employ. Their standard is very high. They want to employ teachers that are qualified, teachers that have a high degree. They don't just pick teachers anyhow. They want to know teachers that are specialized in fields. But in public schools, they don't do that. They just pick any teacher that maybe has the ND or what and BSc and all that. But in private schools, they are deliberate about the teachers they employ, because with the standard of people they bring into the system, it's that will determine the quality of education the students get. So we need to get these things right. Employing qualified teachers that are able to deliver quality education to the students, because you cannot employ a teacher that doesn't really know English language. Imagine that we just destroy the language of the child growing up. Because as I am now, I went to, like I said earlier, I went to a private school. That alone shaped my language. But you see people mixing up tenses and all that is the foundation they got. They were not exposed to the right to the right learning they should have been exposed to. So I feel these are just various ways. This
is very loaded. They say lack of facilities affects lack of funding. Then there are more extracurricular activities in the private school more than the public, and which aid their learning. And you also talked about the teaching experiences of the teachers. Wow, that was very loaded. All right, ma. Looking at the second question. After this you've listed, do we see any difference? Does it make a difference in the overall performance of children in private school and public schools in Nigeria? And secondly, do the environment as in the environmental differences in these two categories have any role to play in conducive learning of the students?
Now, one key factor here is having a positive mental health. The students need to have a safe environment. They need to have a conducive environment. When you're in environments where there's peace, there's calm, you are given the necessary facilities to work with, you are given, your laboratories are functioning well, the libraries are functioning well, the child will have a good mental health. When there is access to maybe counseling, there's a safe space where the child can express his or herself, the child will have a positive mental health, because mental health is very important. When students are able to express themselves, there's no fear, there's no threat anywhere coming from anywhere, because they feel supported, they feel that they have a say and they'll be heard. So when we have cases where students are not, given the right facilities, that environment alone, like, they'll be limited. Their learning experience will be limited. So one other thing is there's increased academic performance. You see, like I said earlier, access to those facilities, they are given those facilities to help them academically. They're able to see that they can do more with those resources that they have at hand. They're able to explore, participate actively in class, because they feel like they are supported and they are being heard by their teachers, their parents, and their peers. Now, one other factor I want to mention is this aspect of bullying. And bullying affects your health. It affects not just your physical health, your emotional and your mental health. So when these students are given access to, when they survey, like, they can write down how they feel, they can express themselves, they feel safe in that environment. They feel safe, they feel heard, they feel supported, they feel like they're important. Depression, nothing like depression, it is reduced to a minimal level, because they are accepted, they are respected, and they feel a sense of belonging. One other thing I want to mention is there's an enhanced creativity and innovation. They're able to express themselves, they think of innovative ways, they think out of the box, they promote, it promotes critical thinking for them and problem solving for them too, because they are opportuned. So this difference between the public and the private schools, like, it's just one thing we need to look at, because the students, they need all the resources they can to learn. And now, in a private school, like, there's this teacher-parent relationship and the students, because having a safe and conducive environment is not just everybody has a role to play. The students have a role to play, the teachers and the management, the administrators, they all have a role to play. The staff themselves, they have a role to play. So having that community, they have a community where they are being trained, where they are being sensitized on what to do. What if they are in cases of their security threats? What is the step to be taken? So the positive with that community alone, it creates that safe space for everybody. People are able to bring in ideas on how the school can be safe. That is just what I can say about it. But in government schools, they really know, they don't really concentrate on majorly on that parental, influence coming in. But private school, they are more, in tune with that. Now, there's also physical and emotional safety. In a safe environment, the students are protected from physical harm, from emotional distress. You yourself, when you are in a place that you don't feel safe, you hear that maybe there's a bomb blast somewhere. What is in your mind is not even your academics at that point. Maybe you are a student. What is in your mind at that point is to get out of that place. But a place that is safe for you, a place that is, protected, you feel like, okay, no harm can come to me where I am right now. Because the private school, they focus, majorly on security. Their focus is they want to ensure that, the place is secure, the place is safe. Like I went to University of Abuja. In that school, it is not even fenced, it's just the front that is fenced, to tell you the truth. And you see all these herders coming in with their cows and all that. That alone should tell you that the place is not even safe, because that was when we're hearing of kidnappers and all that, and Boko Haram and all those things. But having a place that is, safe, there are CCTV cameras, there are security men checking, and there's limited entry into the premises and all that. Obviously, you can all drive in and enter, but in private schools, there's nothing like that. The place is protected. Students feel like there's no harm that can, come to them. And their learning experience is improved. They have a good learning experience. They're able to express their thoughts and opinions freely. They're able to communicate their feelings without fear, without judgment. So I believe these are just the environmental factors regarding that.
Well, thank you very much. At least you said it enhances their creativity and innovation. When students study in a conducive learning environment, it increases their academic performance. And as well, there is no physical harm or any emotional distress attached to this. That was very great. Thank you very much. Coming back to you with loads of questions.
Okay.
All right, going to our second speaker, Mrs. Sheung. Hello, ma.
I can hear you too, son. I'm here.
All right, thank you, ma.
Could also turn
So,
on.
going to your questions, what do you think are the benefits of a safe and conducive learning environment?
Okay, so can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear you, ma.
Okay, I was going to actually speak to the questions that I think Mrs. Lucia had already answered. But speaking first to your question, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to be speaking about this topic. When environments are safe and they are conducive for young people or for children and youth, you'd find that it makes education itself very interesting. I have a friend, somebody that I lived with, who complained that, while she was in school, she was bullied a lot. And I remember, I think it was when Mrs. Lucia was also talking, that she spoke about the effects of bullying and whatnot. There was an orientation we had when we were in school, especially if you had gone to a boarding school, that there was a certain level of treatment that you were supposed to just, what's the word now? You're supposed to get used to, just because we're in that environment. So you see, oh, this person is my senior and me, I'm a junior, but don't worry, when I also become a senior, I'm going to show my junior shaggy. There was just a lot of things. But when you look back at it, most of those things were us actually enduring bullying, a lot of bullying. And at the end of the day, we don't know the psychological effects that this might have on people. Because education, again, goes beyond, I just went to school to learn mathematics and English. There's a lot of emotional intelligence that you're building as a result of being in school. There's a lot of soft skills that you're learning as a result of being in school. And whatever school it is that you go to can either make you or actually mar you. And so you find people looking back at their primary, secondary school experience to say, I am here because of these experiences that I actually did, while I was in school. Some of us remember these experiences even more than the subjects that we went to the school to actually learn. So if you ask me now that when I went to Ife, what did I enjoy the most about my time there? Because I studied at Ife. I won't tell you that it was my EGL 101 course. That was the best thing. I'll tell you about the experiences I had with my roommates, the experiences I had with my colleagues, the experiences I had with my teachers, the experiences I had in my place of worship. Like those things came together to make my education experience very robust, right? And so if you have an environment that is unconducive or safe or unsafe for the students, you find that these students come out of school feeling a bit psychologically damaged. I remember this friend that I was telling you about. She was bullied a lot in school and she came out suffering from self-esteem issues. And every single time we trace it back, she would say, it was because one senior did this to me when I was in school. It was because that senior abused me when I was in school and all of that. Did she learn what she was supposed to learn in terms of, math, English, and whatnot? The answer to that is yes, she actually did. But was she able to, did the experiences that she was subjected to as a result of, growing up or learning in an unsafe and an unconducive environment, did it impact the quality of the person that she eventually became when she came out of school? The answer to that is also a very, very big yes. So one of the benefits of just having a safe and conducive environment is that it makes education more interesting for the students, but it also impacts the quality of their character and the kind of people that they become way outside of school as well. So basically there's that. Another thing that I'm going to speak to is when a child is growing, we all know that when we give birth to a child or when a child comes to the world, the child does not come to the world with any knowledge. Basically, your mind is blank. Philosophers call it tabula rasa because you don't have anything in your mind. So what makes a child are the impact of everything that you begin to hear and see and touch and feel. And the very first place that you begin to get shaped as a child is your family, because that's where you're born. Everything you see your parents do, you also begin to do. If your parents are absent, it affects you, etc. But then the next place where a child gets shaped right after family is actually their school or their learning environment. Because for some of us, from as early as say maybe 2 years old, we're already thrown into a crèche or kindergarten or one school or the other. And so you spend even more time in school sometimes than you actually do at home. Some of us went to a day school, so it means that we'll still come home. But some of us went to boarding schools, which means that for maybe for some 5-6 years, we didn't even see our parents as much as we saw our teachers and whatnot. So imagine the quality of children that we're bringing out, what it tells on their esteem, what it tells on their self-worth, what it tells on their identity, what it tells on how they see life, how they see themselves, and how they treat other people just by virtue of going through a system that is unsafe and unconducive, right? So aside from learning, being book brilliant, there's something my mom used to say, Sheon, you're very book brilliant. I'm a Yoruba girl, so she always says it in Yoruba, there's an adage she say, or something like that, meaning that it's not just book smart. You're not just supposed to be book smart. You're also supposed to be intelligent emotionally. You're also supposed to be very aware of yourself. You're supposed to be treating other people with kindness, and all of these things that shape you as your character. It depends on the kind of environment that you're a part of. So if you've been through an environment that is unsafe, where you have been abused verbally, maybe by your teachers, abused by your seniors, abused emotionally and whatnot, at the end of the day, it tells on the quality of your person and how you treat yourself and also how you treat other people as well. So I'll pass it back to you, Tosa. I hope that answers your question to some extent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs. Shion. That was very, very brilliant. You said it makes education more interesting, and actually it has an impact on the students, both the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. Thank you very much, ma. Going to the second question, it says, what roles can the government and private individuals play in bridging the existing gaps? Actually, according to Mrs. Lucia, she was talking on some gaps of lack of facilities, lack of funding, and some other things. Now, what are the roles government or we as an individual, private individual, can play in bridging the existing gaps? Thank you, ma.
Thank you so much. That's a very, very interesting question. I like that question a lot. And in addition to, I don't want to repeat everything that Mrs. Lucia already shared. So I'll just share a couple of other things. In my own work, I work in the education space. I work as a development practitioner, and I sort of work with, NGOs, civil society, and all of those things. So one of the things that the United Nations has reported as crises that is affecting the world right now, where education is concerned, can actually be broken into 4. But the way I like to approach problems is I look at my own community and I'm like, okay, even if the UN has said these are the problems affecting us in terms of the crisis that we are battling education-wise, what are some of the problems that I can see and I can observe is, affecting my own community? And so when you look at those gaps, when you look at that crisis, you can actually categorize them into some of the things that Mrs. Lucia already said. But in addition to what she said, we also have the problem of access. And when we talk about access, they're basically 4 of them. There's equity, there is access, there is quality of education, and there's relevance. I'll try to explain everything one after the other and then answer your question on what governments can do and what individuals can do as well. And I'll start with access. When you talk about education, we already agree. I don't think there's anybody on this call that does not agree that education is a priority. I don't think there's anybody on this call that does not agree that everybody should have access to education. I don't think there's anybody on this call that does not agree that girls should be educated as much as boys are educated. So if we agree that education is a priority, it then answers the question or begs the question of who funds education, right? Who funds education? Because education is very, very expensive and it's a public good. Public goods are goods that, the government provides for you or should provide for you because everybody should have access to it. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're driving home or you're in a bus or something and you're walking on a road and then all of a sudden there's no street lights. And you know that if there's no street lights, bad things can happen on that road. It is your right as a citizen to demand that the government provides you with street lights because you are paying taxes. So in that case, street lights is a public good. And so in Nigeria, education is actually a public good, meaning that the government should make sure that education is a priority and they should fund it. But the government alone cannot fund education because education is expensive. Are they trying? We have public schools, right? And the public schools are funded by government. We have public universities and public universities are funded by government. If you try to do your master's abroad, you see the thousands of dollars that are going to be charged. And if you go to Unilag or you go to OAU and you say you want to do the same course or the same master's, comparing it to what, say, maybe the University of Sussex is going to charge you, you say, you know that you're not paying any school fees, right? So there's every subsidy on education from the government part because they are doing their best to say, okay. But so in a way, public schools, I'll limit it to public schools, private schools. Public schools are a bit more accessible than private schools are because it's already funded, it's affordable. So that's why you have so many people in the schools, so many children in a particular class, because if those schools are not there, then those children are not going to go to any school at all. Their parents cannot afford to pay the 50, 100, 200K that a private school, and when I say private school, I'm talking about good private schools, because we have some private schools that they are private school, but even you say, you know that public schools are better than, all those private schools that they shall just have a building somewhere beside your house. And then there are some private schools that are really inaccessible because of how expensive they are. Now that's for access, right? But then we talk about quality. Even though these schools, public schools might be accessible than some private schools, but then we have people that can afford private schools too. So let's say that you can even access to go to both schools. How about quality? Quality talks about what's the quality of learning that the students are gaining from these schools. And when you talk about quality, you're talking about the teachers. Do the teachers know what they are teaching? And even if they know what they are teaching, which also speaks to the third point, which is relevant. How relevant is the knowledge that they have against the problems that we are facing right now? How relevant is what we are going to school to learn against the things they are preparing us for outside of school, right? You go to schools right now, there is nothing in the curriculum that teaches people about sustainable development, nothing in the curriculum that teaches people about the SDGs, nothing in the curriculum that teaches about climate action, nothing in the curriculum, because we are teaching people things, but the knowledge that we are gaining against the way the world is growing and the problems we are facing right now is not so relevant. So there's that place of quality where you have to invest in the quality of the curriculum that we're giving students against, other schools in the Western world, and also invest in the quality of the teachers that, it doesn't mean change the teachers. My mom is a teacher in a public school. She has been a dedicated civil servant all her life. And honestly, she's educated, yes, amongst other friends. I don't know, civil servants try a lot because they are extremely dedicated. Now, their dedication can be because they don't have any other source of income. Maybe they are loyal because they feel like, is this my one job? I don't have another job, so let me just be doing it. But it could also come from a place of, I have to serve this government for 35 years. For some people, it's age. So they have to serve the government till they are 60. And you see them waking up, doing this thing at 55, at 56. They are still going to these schools. One day they move them from one local government to another local government, and they will still go. I mean, these are things I experienced because my mom is a teacher, and one minute she's teaching in Bolade Grammar School in Oshodi. The next minute, they've moved that to Yanopaja. Another minute, they've moved, and they will still do all these things. Private schools don't even have the luxury of teachers like that. If you move your school from Oshodi to Ikeja, your teachers are going to leave you, except you're already paying them well. They'll follow you. But if not, they will go and find another school to teach from. But you see that in some public schools, these teachers will stay there and all. So to compensate them, is very, very important. So you are not just investing. So quality is not, I'm changing the teachers. It's just that, okay, can we upgrade them? Can we upgrade their knowledge? Can we upskill them? How can we begin to do this? And for public schools, these are questions that the government needs to start asking so that they can answer and they can help the teachers do better, right? So I've spoken to some of those gaps. In terms of what government can do, I think I already mentioned some. One of them is funding. If you hear how much is allocated in the budget to education in Nigeria, you're going to feel very sorry for education in this country. It is extremely low compared to other things like, the government officials' wardrobe allowance, compared to other things like so many other things. Like education is a priority, but it's not treated as though it's a priority. In Lagos, education still feels like, oh yeah, at least everybody goes to school. Maybe it's the same in Abuja, but if you go to the north, because I served in Bauchi, and you see the way students are and how they don't even prioritize education in them, Adamawa and Co., then you see that education maybe is not taken as seriously as it really should. So one of the things that the government can do to help and bridge the education crisis and gaps that we have is even first of all, taking education really seriously. And it's not just talk, it's talk and do. And how you do is that you up the budgets for education. The budget goes a long way in improving the quality of the facilities of schools. The budget goes a long way in even compensating the teachers themselves. You're giving them good remuneration for their hard work. And because the teachers are happy, they are happy to come to work because they are well paid, you find that they even give to the students more counsel beyond the English that they are teaching them, beyond the Yoruba that they are teaching them, beyond the mathematics that they are teaching them. They are there in shaping how these children actually even grow. And so it ultimately contributes to providing a conducive and safe environment because the teachers are happy. But if you put a child in a school where the teacher is unhappy, it's going to tell on the child because the teacher is going to take, what's it called? What's the word? When you transfer aggression on someone, the teacher is going to approach their job as, how much are they paying me that I'm even supposed to be teaching you all these things? How much are they paying me that you're asking me all these questions? Go and sit down. And so that's what you find when teachers are not well compensated, well remunerated, well rewarded for their work, and when the funding that is given to education is really low. The third thing that I'm going to say is to train the teachers. That's on the government side. For public schools, you have to invest in training teachers. And the good thing is we have so many organizations that are doing this thing right now. Digital training, emotional intelligence training, education for sustainable development training. There are so many things. I run TDS, and what TDS does is that we give students, young people, access to education for sustainable development in Africa. Tomorrow, I'm going to be going to a private school in Lagos alongside a friend and a colleague, and we're going to be onboarding the teachers of a particular school called Wellspring on the knowledge of sustainable development so that they can onboard their students in return. Private schools are well funded, so they can afford to pay us to do that. But the government can also, take initiative and say, we want to train our teachers to also be able to do things like this, right? And so they also invest in teacher training so that it just can also upskill and upgrade. I'm going to stop there for government. And then for individuals, I'll just say that we should keep trying to observe problems because the truth is the government cannot solve all the education crises on their own. And they really depend on individuals stepping up as well. If we look at all the SDGs, you see that not one of them is saying only governments have to achieve this thing. It's government plus individuals plus civil organizations plus multilateral companies and whatnot. So for individuals, you are observing a problem in your community. You see that there's something wrong with education. You keep asking yourself, why does this problem exist? The more you ask why, the more you're able to identify the root cause of that problem. And the more you're able to identify the root cause of that problem, the more you're able to identify what solution you in your own little way and your own little capacity can solve. We have individuals who are building schools that are trying to meet needs that, the government schools are not meeting. We have individuals who go to government schools to try to sensitize their teachers, train them, and even train the student. And so I won't tell you that this is the solution you need to do. I'll just tell you that as an individual, you can start from observing problems and then observe those problems and say, what's the root cause of this problem? So we can tackle that problem from the roots. And then when you ask yourself why, at least if you keep asking why does this problem exist, why does up to like 3 times, you find a particular root cause that you know that in your own little and your own little capacity, you can actually start also solving and contributing to that solution as well. So this is where I'll stop because of time, and I'll pass it back to you, Tosa.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was really, really loaded. Starting from the acronym AEQR: access, equity, quality, and relevance. And again, going back to the solutions, the way we can bridge the gap, you said the government has to treat education as a priority. They have to invest in training teachers. And the one I love most is that of the individual. You try to observe, identify, provide solution, and wow, that was loaded. Thank you, Mrs. Shion. Because of our time, I think the participants are noting down, jotting down their questions. Let's go on to Ms. Deborah. Ms. Deborah, are you with us?
Hi, yes, I am here.
Yeah, thank you. And welcome once again. Now going to your question, Ms. Deborah. What are the challenges in beating the attainment of conducive and safe learning environments in public institutions in Nigeria? What can we call the main challenge or the challenges? Thank you, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much, Susan, for this. It's been a wonderful conversation so far, and I just want to appreciate everyone for having me here again. Honestly, I just want to appreciate the 2 speakers before me, Lucia and I believe Shegun. They expressed so much on this topic already, and I know that they have already dove deep into a lot of challenges that we are currently facing when it comes to just providing that conducive and safe environment. So I'm gonna try not to reiterate what they've already said, but there are a few points that they have shared that I would like to just highlight and point out based on the challenges most especially. So I'm gonna come from 3 different perspectives. I'm gonna come from the perspective of the educator, the perspective of the student, and then the perspective of the parents. So number 1, I do believe we've been talking about providing, teacher training, supportive teacher training that, enables educators to know and understand how to provide quality education, but not just that, to actually know what it is that they're doing in the classroom, which is something that is priceless for any teacher in any space that they're in. But something that I personally have seen as I've worked alongside other, passionate curriculum developers and providers is that a lot of the time there are, free educational opportunities and resources that are provided for teachers, especially teachers in Nigeria that I've seen. I mean, we can have more, definitely, we do need more, but I have, noticed and have been part of organizations to provide these opportunities. But what we're seeing is that a lot of teachers actually don't take part. A lot of them don't get involved. And a lot of these trainings are usually free or they're very subsidized. Some of them have scholarships that people have paid, so people have contributed and donated so that a certain number of teachers can get involved. But what we're seeing is a very, very low percentage of teacher interaction, teacher engagement. So what's the problem here? The problem is that we need to learn how to incentivize our educators. So we need to learn how to get them excited about education again, because it's not just about providing the funding, like my co-speakers have said, which is important. It's not just about providing the training, which is important. It's about providing an environment that makes them feel like they are important, that makes them feel like they're valued, that makes them feel like the profession they chose to do is something of worth, and it makes a huge, significant impact, not just in the lives of students, but also in the lives of their parents, in the lives of the environment, their communities, the country as a whole. So we need to look at pathways that will reignite this passion, that will reignite this understanding in a lot of our educators, and help them to see that what they're doing is not wasted energy, what they're doing is not wasted processes. I know that sometimes a lot of instances we have people who go for their NYSC, opportunities, and some of them just kind of like are dumped in teaching positions, even though that's not what they chose to study as a profession, even though it's not something that they chose to do. They're just kind of put there, and so they just do it. And sometimes some of them are stuck there. And when you're stuck in a position, when you're stuck in a profession that you didn't choose, when you're stuck in a profession that you don't personally see yourself continuing, that's also something that is a challenge, because then you have educators in a position that they don't want to be in. And how do you encourage them to stay there? How do you encourage them to continue? Or how do you provide opportunities for them to leave that profession and enter something else that they are passionate about, so that those who are passionate about education can come in and fill those positions? So again, for the teacher part, how do we incentivize our educators to love teaching again? Not to love it because they don't love it, but to love it in the sense that we see them, we value them, we know that they're here. And one of those powerful ways as well is increasing the budget of teacher salaries. I can't remember who touched upon this, but that is a huge problem. And I can speak and testify that it's not just a problem here in Nigeria, it's a problem globally. Globally, educators are one of the lowest paid professionals in the world. And it is a huge problem. And sometimes, most times, it is something that is, proves to be a huge challenge for educators who are specifically in, developing countries like Nigeria, because our money is not something that, we can stand and be proud of at the moment, but hopefully we can get there. So yeah, how do we incentivize our teachers so that they can reignite that passion and jump into opportunities that already exist? The second part, which is, the student perspective. A lot of students, like we talked about, first of all, just access to resources in general. We talked about the differences between private and public. I know that in public, when you think about the provision for resources for teachers alone, it's kind of very unfortunate to even think about it. More so the students that, that's their only choice. A lot of students, the fact that that's their only choice sometimes is compiled with the fact that they're coming from social economical backgrounds that can't really support their educational growth and their educational experiences. So do they have money to buy textbooks? Do they have money to buy, notebooks? Do they have money to buy pencils? Things that they need in the classroom to even learn in the first place. So for students, one of the biggest challenges as well is like access to those basic learning resources that they need in order for them to build on their growth and their learning capabilities and their experiences, right? I know that Lucia talked about libraries, and I love that she shared about that, because that's also something that's huge. Do we have access to free libraries for students to go in and to access books that will help them build on their vocabulary, that will help them build on any subject area? Are these books updated? We're not just talking about books that were available 30, 40, have archived books, but do we have recent literature that can help them, that can expand their knowledge, not just in their community, but also in them to understand that, hey, they need to be able to know information that can help them grow outside of their environment and help their environment in general. And then I'll go over to the last point, which is from the focal point of parents. How much are parents being involved in the process of their students' learning? I know that some public schools try to provide opportunities for parents to get involved, for parents to know what it is that's going on in the classroom. But in the public school system, how are we providing that? Because we talked about class sizes as well. And if we have a class size of, I'm just throwing numbers here, 200 students. That's just, for example, how is a teacher with a class size of 200 students supposed to communicate with each student's parent, right? So that's not even very feasible. I've taught in a system where I had to manage about 100 students, and that wasn't even in Nigeria, and that was a lot. I barely got to each and every parent each semester. So it's a challenge for us to be able to communicate with parents, and parents also need training. I think the overlook of parents being involved in the education system is huge, because when parents get involved, things move, things change, perspectives are shared, and we can involve other ideas that can help benefit our society and our students' learning opportunities. So let me just round up here by saying that training for parents as well on how to understand the learning environment, how to support their students inside the classroom and also outside of it when they get back home. How do you support your student in continuing that learning process and making sure that they understand the information? Because it's not supposed to be all on the teacher, which right now, that's what a lot of us are experiencing. COVID was an example of that. A lot of people realized that, hey, everybody just dumped all the pressure and all the responsibility on teachers, and now we're stuck with not knowing how to help our students. So parent involvement is key. Them understanding how to help their students as well is a challenge that needs to be solved in order to produce that very overall well-rounded, conducive and safe learning environment. So passing it back to you, Tizan.
All right, thank you, Ms. Debbie. That was awesome. Looking at the three sectors, the educator, the aspect of the students, and looking at the aspect of the parents. Wow. So as an educator, you are trying to tell the teachers, make use of the free educational opportunities that has been put in place for you. There are free scholarships, make use of it and equip yourself to be empowered. And then looking at it from the angle of the students, they need access to basic learning resources. Wow, that was great. And to parents, I think I love that point. Communication to parents is low in the public sector. Just imagine it's a class of 70 students. How do the class teacher want to relate with the 70 students' parents? Wow. Thank you very much. Going to your second question, it is, what role can ICT play in ensuring the attainment of conducive and safe learning environment for children and youth in Nigeria? Do you get that?
I love this question. Yes, I love this question because I'm an ed tech enthusiast. I teach a lot about education technology. So this is very, very important, especially in our world today. Technology is huge. Technology is here. Technology is in the classroom, and it's not just about playing catch up for us. It's about understanding the worth of technology in the classroom, but how to do it in a way that supports the learning environment. So I'll say I'll give 3 PowerPoints on what ICT should be in the classroom, especially at this moment. Also taking into consideration that a lot of schools in Nigeria don't really have access to technological equipment for all of the students to enjoy, and even the teachers themselves to even learn and understand. So I'll take that into consideration as well. So the first thing is actual access to these things. If there is provision for these technological equipment to be available, specifically in the public school system. I don't want to touch the private school because, again, I know that some do get a lot of funding and they can, they have the opportunity to provide this for their teachers and their students, or encourage it for their students. But in the public school system, they most of the time do not have it. And sometimes if they do have it, it's outdated, or the teachers themselves don't know how to actually use it, or they know how to use it, but they don't want to use it. So it's a lot. But number one, it's access to the education resource itself. So if we're talking about access to technology in the classroom, we have to think about, where do we start? Is it by just immediately providing a bunch of computers to the classroom? No. Is it about providing everyone with a Google email and say, just go on Google Classroom? No, it's about thinking about where we're at, when it comes to technology in the classroom. What do the teachers know already? What do the educators understand about tech in the classroom? And then how can we build on that knowledge? So access is not just about the physical resources, it's also about access to the learning capabilities and growth of the educators themselves, and then the educators transferring that learning opportunity to the students themselves. The second thing that I want to share is the role of ICT in education to help cultivate that conducive learning environment is the provision of learning resources online. So we have things like Udemy, Coursera. I mean, there's a lot of them, right, that are popping up now. And there's one that I've collaborated with in the past, SchoolLink as well. That one is specific to educators. But a lot of these online learning platforms, online learning course platforms are popping up, by the hour. I would exaggerate on that. And how can we use that to our advantage? A lot of teachers, if they're willing, can learn how to create courses, can learn how to teach their lessons, right, via online resources like Zoom, or like even anything that they can use to record themselves and then put it on these learning websites so the students can access them whenever they can. Students can be able to use things like Google Classroom, log in and be able to catch up with a lesson, be able to catch up with an assignment, and just providing that kind of learning experience little by little for students. That kind of encouragement can boost not just the growth when it comes to technological use for students, but it can also expand their opportunities and their skill sets as well. Because if you think big, if you think on a global scale, a lot of these learning opportunities virtually, they're not as new as they are for us here. So they are already used to it. How can our students catch up? It's by continuously providing those opportunities for them and making it accessible for them, not just, again, with the physical, but is it free? Is it subsidized? And how are they going to, benefit from them? One more thing that I do want to add about this is we also need to take into consideration where we live and what is accessible for people. WhatsApp is something that people very much know of, are very used to. Telegram is something people are used to again. Zoom is something that people are, find convenient to use. So it's about also thinking about, the situation around you and the community and what can people easily grasp onto and what can students easily have access to the very basic minimum when it comes to technology, when you're thinking about the remote learning and e-learning opportunities. And then the last part that I want to talk about is the digital citizenship and the skill development. So when we provide these opportunities, it actually empowers students, it empowers educators. By the time you learn how to use Google Classroom to create different learning opportunities for, like, say, biology and chemistry, and your students are doing fantastic and they're expanding their knowledge and growth, that's something that can be added to your resume as an educator. That's something that can boost the level of authority that you have in that conversation, and also the level of understanding that you have when it comes to transferring information, not just from a person to a person in person, but transferring information digitally to somebody and then having them understand that information. So it is actually a skill. It's something that you should be proud of being able to do. And it's something that can be recognized as a benefit, as quality, right? So it definitely does help to boost the career development of teachers. But on the student side, it helps to equip them with skills that they need. Because if we're equipping them with these technological skills, we're advancing their understanding and knowledge of the tech world, the virtual world. We have things now like AI, running information and running systems. We have so much happening in the virtual world right now. And in order for our students to have that opportunity, not to catch up, but to even maybe surpass what is already going on, we need to introduce them into the space safely with safeguards, giving them the understanding that they need to know what is important and what isn't, what are the safest ways to use technology, what are the wisest ways to use technology, and what are the things to avoid and stay away from when using technology. Because skill development and digital citizenship is not just about understanding how to use WhatsApp to deliver a course or for a student understanding how to use Google Classroom so that you can learn better. And those are just minimal examples. It's also understanding what not to put on Facebook. It's also understanding what not to put on Facebook that will protect you when you're trying to look for a job in the future, because there are people that, they didn't have digital citizenship. So they didn't understand what it meant to use social media. They didn't understand what it meant to use the virtual systems. And so they just kind of put anything everywhere. And when they're looking for a job, I kid you not, when you're looking for a job, people research you. People look into what it is that you do and what kind of person you are. People try to learn who you are based on what you have done online. And when they look into that and when they see that it's not looking great, you're not going to be one of those candidates that they're feeling very confident about. So it's also something that we need to put in that futuristic perspective for our students so that they can understand that there are consequences to actions that we put forth virtually. And so when it comes down to the digital skills and citizenship, it's so important for us to educate teachers on how to give that information, understanding that information, and then training and supporting the students on why it's beneficial for them. So I'll pass it over to you, Tristan.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Debbie. So I guess we've learned a lot tonight from the three panelists, Mrs. Lucia, Mrs. Shil, and Ms. Debbie. Please, if there's any question, it's now time for question and answer from the participants. Anybody with question and answer, please signify, and I'll pass the role to. And you can as well drop it on the chat box. Thank you. And if there is none, let me throw this question to any of the panelists who will be able to answer us. Like, I want to ask a question that says, what role can students themselves play in fostering a safe learning environment? And how can their voices be heard and valued in the decision-making process? Mrs. Shell, Mrs. Lucia, or Ms. Debbie, whoever wants to answer, over to you.
Susan, can you come again with the question?
All right, thank you, Ms. Shell. The question says, what role can students themselves play in fostering a safe learning environment? And how can their voices be heard and valued in the decision-making process?
Okay, I think Deborah raised her hand, so you should go first.
Oh,
All right,
you already unmiked. Okay, I'll go really quickly. Yeah, I'll go really quickly and I'll pass it over to Sharon. So something that just popped into my mind was for us, the educators, any educator that is here, to give our students the opportunity to speak. And we can empower them by creating opportunities in the classroom for them to solve problems, not just creating it in that classroom space, but if you solve a problem here, would you mind presenting it to the teacher, the faculty of the school? Would you mind presenting it to the parents? Can we have a, kind of like a meeting? I don't want to say conference, but a meeting with everyone involved in that school environment, and they come together and the students share their perspectives, the students share their solutions. So it's just by giving them those step-by-step opportunities. First of all, giving them the opportunity to think about solutions themselves, and then empowering them by giving them a platform to speak, and then supporting them with opportunities that we know exist that are specific for students. I know of an organization that is specific for providing scholarship benefits for students when it comes to social development goals. Like, they empower students to know what these goals are, but also to provide solutions and send those solutions to a global platform, and they get incentivized for it. Their solutions, if they're selected, they get publicized, and these students are invited to come speak on a very public global stage. about it. So it's about, the teachers providing these opportunities, but also the teachers knowing about the opportunities in the first place, and then, taking it upon themselves to look into what can help. But if you aren't a teacher and you're not in the classroom space, you can also support students by sharing this information, whether it's through social media, or if you know any teacher friends, or any family members who are in the classroom space, you can also share this information with them and support them with anything that they could possibly need from what your expertise are, so that they can further this. But I would love to pass it over to Sheila.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Debbie. I guess I have 2 questions here now. One from Vivian. She said, concerning the employment of quality teachers, I believe there exists a training institution for teachers in Nigeria that awards a 4 years degree called NCE. Sorry, NCE is 3 years. 4 years, okay. Why then are schools not employing them, but rather looking for BSc or master's degree holders? I find it confusing because these people are already trained for the job. Don't you think there should be a re-evaluation of the employment system of teachers for quality education? Okay, she's trying to say, why can't the government employ those that went to school to study education? Why are they looking for BSc and master's degree holder? Okay, I guess Ms. Sheung, can you please answer the question for us, Mrs. Sheung?
Okay, let me answer that question. For the last question, I think that Deborah already did a fantastic job answering it, because my answer was also tilted towards creating an enabling environment for the students, and also just giving them opportunities, access to opportunities that help them, use their voices. But for the question that Vivian asked as regards this, one of the problems that we have facing education today is also the problem of perception. What perception means is, how do people perceive a particular school? How do people perceive a particular level of education? It was one of the problems I would have shared when I was talking about the distinction between private schools and public school, that regardless of the quality of teaching in a public school, there is already this perception about it that it's public schools, and private schools are better. It exists. And it's that same perception that exists between university, people that go to university, people that go to polytechnics, and people that go to colleges of education, NCE holders and whatnot. It's a perception problem. So where we might first want to even fix that solution is asking ourselves, why is there a perception problem in the case of education? Is it that people that go to colleges of education are not getting as much training, or they're not being taught as well? The quality in the education is not as good as people that go to universities to study education, or people that go to universities at all. So if we find that there is a problem, so there's something called the problem tree. The problem tree is like a tree. So the problem you've identified, we put that at the stem of the tree, and then we keep asking ourselves why to make up the root causes. So in this case, the problem is there is a perception problem in the way people that go to colleges of education, NCE holders, are viewed, as opposed to people that go to universities to get a BSc, BA degree, or even an or master's degree holders. And so we're asking ourselves, why does this problem exist? And the more we keep asking why, the more you unravel one problem or the other. So it might not just be that, we need to reevaluate the way teachers are employed. It could also be that maybe the quality of the education in these schools that are colleges of education are not as top-notch as that of, people that go to university. Or it could just be that people just need to be resensitized on how they view these things, to say one school is not lesser than the other, and if you do give me the chance, I'll prove to you that I can do the work better than somebody that's even gone to a university to study this particular course. So the more we ask why, the more we unravel the problems, and the closer we get to the solution to that. So back to you, Tosa.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Sheung. Actually, let me add to that. I'm a graduate from a college of education, academic qualification to be precise. All my days in school, okay, before getting admission to this school, there's this thought everybody that goes to college of education has. Let me just go to college of education since I've not been offered an admission in any university. they have this kind of low self-esteem they give to themselves while going to the school. So everybody out there also has the thinking that, okay, oh, she later ended up being a teacher because she does not really like the profession. She just wanted to go to school. And this thing is actually affecting. That's why people who graduate with education, I have my mates that they don't even use that certificate at all. They believe it's valueless. The value they place on themselves affects even them saying, okay, they want to apply for this job as a teacher because they're not proud of their profession. That's another thing. And that's why it's you who drop yours that they will employ. Thank you. There's another question here. I guess Mrs. Lucia, you answer this for us. It says, how can emotional intelligence be nurtured in young children to help them grow to be collaborative and mentally healthy individuals?
All right, thank you very much I would actually want to appreciate you for, what's a good job you've been doing so far. And thank you for also the opportunity to be able to speak on this platform aspect of humans' lives. We need to be emotionally intelligent to know how to, figure out how to get out of circumstances, situations that come our way. Now, for the student needs to have the ability to listen actively. Being able to listen actively, you get to being able to understand what people are saying, to, listen, expressing his or herself. So being able to listen in such situations, it's role modeling. To tell you the truth, children, young people, they are observant of their environments, they are observant of the adults around them. They need to have role models to shape those thinking patterns of the students. There's no way they can really make a good headway. Another one is emotional intelligence. You need to teach those students how to express themselves, how to really pour out their hearts, how to say what and how, and kindness. We need to teach students how to be empathetic.
Can anyone hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you. I think we lost Lucia.
Okay. All right. Back to the next question. Miss Debbie, come and answer this. So what steps are being taken to enhance teacher training and welfare in Nigeria?
Thank you so much for this question. I hope we can have Lucia finish what she was sharing, but I'll just quickly answer this. Like I mentioned previously when I was discussing about the challenges we face, there are a lot of NGOs that are coming up to provide teacher training and support. And I'll give another example. Teacher Aid Nigeria is one organization that actually provides donations to teachers, and they experience more developmental skill set training. So there are opportunities that are popping up more frequently for teachers. I will say maybe it's probably two things. Number one, knowing about them, so access to the information about them. I do know there are Facebook groups dedicated to sharing about training specifically for teachers. So it's all about the teachers taking on the responsibility, which is the second part of this, to resource search and look for those look for those trainings, because again, a lot of the organizations and people who are passionate about providing these things, they can only do so much. They can advertise as much as they can share about it as much as they can, but if you yourself, the teacher, don't look for it, well, you're not going to find it. So you need to be actively looking for these opportunities in order to take part in them, and following up on the organizations, following their social media handles, knowing what's coming up next so that you can catch up on the benefits that are being provided. So again, I'll just say, like, a lot of private organizations are coming up with opportunities for teachers. And when it comes to welfare as well, I do know that there are a few schools that try to support their teachers by paying for these trainings as well. So that the schools go ahead to take on the full responsibility of the financial responsibility of these training opportunities, so that the teachers can just go and learn and adapt the information. So schools as well are trying to take up on these opportunities. I know private schools majorly, of course, but it's also for us to look at how the public school system can be supported when it comes to the welfare of teachers. And again, I mentioned parent involvement can be key, because when you involve parents and you show them the importance of either teachers getting more training, or there being more opportunities provided for the benefit of the students, a lot of it comes to play, and a lot of it comes to the understanding that, hey, this is for the overall welfare of the community. So I'm definitely going to take part in it as best as I can, and just sensitizing people enough is going to, help push that mentality of motivation. It's not going to be easy, obviously, just because of the environment that we're in, but it's something that we can continuously build into our environment. We can continuously showcase how important it is. But most importantly, sensitizing the youth as well. So providing opportunities for youth to come out and talk about the importance of education as a whole, and using that as a fundraising event, using that as a fundraising opportunity to support teachers in whatever circumstances can be something that can also help and support. So passing it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Debbie. I guess Ms. Lucia is back. So can you just answer that question on emotional intelligence, ma?
Right. Sorry, I was having issues with my network. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was saying something about emotional intelligence. It's a very key factor in the life of anybody, not just a student, even as an adult, is a key factor. You being able to understand your emotions, you being able to communicate your feelings, you being able to, express yourself and understand the next person's emotion. That's a very important skill anyone should have. Now, I mentioned empathy and kindness. Students should be taught, they should be trained how to be empathetic towards others. They should be taught how to, how to look out for one another, how to ensure that they are kind to the next person. There's no discrimination. There's nothing like this person is from this tribe or this race or this religion. There is inclusivity. So there's nothing like discrimination. It's very, very important for students to learn that aspect of living. Then they should also be taught how to listen actively and respond. They should be taught how to what others are saying and understand their emotions and how they respond to different situations. Now, another thing is the people around them. They should be role model adults is doing. So we as individuals, we have that's one thing we have to play. We should know that we are role models. We should know that people are looking at us, students are watching us, they are seeing what we are doing, and they are copying those lifestyles that we carry. So we should not just say we are living our best lives or we are doing whatever I want to. We should know that people are watching, and lives are involved. We should understand that aspect, that whatever we are doing, it can either impact the next generation negatively or positively. We should know that aspect, that we are role models models, and people are looking up to us. The other aspect of it all is emotional awareness, being able to understand their own emotions, because you need to understand how you're feeling. You need to understand your own emotion for you to be able to understand another person's emotion. You should know how they're feeling, how to act in situations where they find themselves maybe under intense pressure, anger, and whatever. They should be able to taught those skills on how to express themselves in such cases. So I believe these are just the ways that, we can teach these students how to be emotionally intelligent, and we need to start right where we are. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mrs.
Thank you
Lucia.
very much, Mrs. Lucia.
So let me just point out this as well to teachers and educators. Whenever we are inside the classroom as well, let's be aware of whatsoever we are doing, because the students also are watching us. You are receiving calls, be well aware of the conversation. You are eating, some students are watching you. They should not go and use you to act drama at home. That's when you see some students come back home. Mommy, if you see the way my aunt was just saying on phone, or if you see the way my aunt was eating, her mouth was just sounding. So let's just be cautious and be aware of everything. Thank you very much to everyone who has participated tonight. And I guess we've learned a whole lot. Let's roll on to Mama. Jimmy, are you on?
Hi, Tosan, I'm on.
All right,
I've been
Ma.
here paying rapt attention to the entire series, and I must say it has been quite an interesting one, honestly. I sincerely want to appreciate all our speakers here. Thank you so much, Mrs. Sheon Olagunjun. Thank you so much, Mrs. Lucia Hikai. Thank you so much, Miss Deborah Osomo. Thank you so much, Tosan Adiwa. I sincerely appreciate all the effort that has gone into putting together this wholesome conversation. You see, the SDSN has begun this program to raise young people who can learn about sustainable development goals and the roles that they need to play at a local level now, and the roles that they will be playing in the future when they find themselves in positions to do so. I believe that among us here are future policy makers, people who will be making impact in our world now and in much time to come. And so by learning and receiving, gathering all the information that has gone round today. Today we've talked about a stretch of topics, aside just the physical quality rather of the classrooms and facilities needed to ensure that students have safe and conducive learning environments. We've talked about how conducive is the learning environment to their mental health, emotionally, when we talked about the issue of bullying. So we've cut across quite a number of subjects today in this discussion, and I'm very sure that we have inspired the SDG advocates present here, and we've educated them so that when they find themselves in positions to make impact, they will key into all that they've learned here today. Personally, I have learned a lot, and I am very, very grateful for this opportunity. And so I want to appreciate the leadership of Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and once again, all our phenomenal speakers. Thank you for making out time to be here. Thank you for sowing this seed of impact and making your own contribution towards the attainment of the 17 SDG goals, particularly education, as we've learned about today. Because of what you've done here, you've educated the young people who are present, and they at the long run will educate more people and make impact. So I truly, truly appreciate this. And I just want to wish us a good night as we return to our various places. I think it's right. It's only appropriate that we give our speakers at least a minute to say one or two things to us as we wrap up. So I will now yield the floor to our speakers to take turns to perhaps leave us with parting words, and then Tosan can send us or close us off today. Thank you very much. Over to our speakers. Let's start with Mrs. Sheon. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I mean, I don't have a lot to say. I was just typing in the chat, and it was a note of appreciation to you and to Tosa and to every single person that put this together. Thank you very much for having us, for inviting us, and for creating a platform for more young people to learn. We'd definitely love to come back again whenever you are having a similar event or session or anything that just, allows for us to give back to society. So thank you and well done.
All right, thank you, Ma. And down to Mrs. Lucia. Your final word, Ma.
All right. Thank you so much for the privilege to be on this platform. And okay, I'd just like to, on a lighter note anyway, the name is Lucia Hikia. It's a rare name, I understand. So
Thank
Hikia.
you for pronouncing it very well for me, Lucia.
Hikia. Okay. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you, Jimmy, for also inviting me to speak today. I really hope that with the little ways we can, push for change, we can do whatever we can do, and to understand that we have a part to play, we all have a part, and people that destinies that are attached to our lives. So we should ensure that we are giving our best, we are ensuring that people are impacted, lives are changed and affected by the little things that we do. We cannot achieve whatever we want to achieve in one day. It takes time with the little kindness, with the little, outreaches and giving out and whatever we can do, just to ensure that people, get impacted by what we do. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you, Ma. And down to Miss Deborah. Can we have your final word, Ma?
Yes, it's just been amazing learning and growing together and just sharing the wealth of knowledge that is in this space right now was just fantastic. And I hope that, number one, we feel encouraged just by hearing and learning from each other. We feel encouraged in what we're doing already, and we feel inspired to think of creative ways, innovative ways on how we can push forth the solutions that were shared, because we did talk about so much. We talked about the challenges, we talked about solutions and the practical ways that we can continue to further the agendas that we need for our education system here in Nigeria. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, the amazing Tosan, for this beautiful moderation that you did for us, and Nkake for just kind of holding everything together, and to everyone who participated. It's just been really fun. I really loved the questions that everybody asked. And I think this is not just the beginning, but a very progressive step forward to how we can continue to improve and grow together. And I hope that we continue to have such spaces and we can take them forth as action steps. So thank you, everyone.
Oh, thank you to everyone who participated and to the awesome speakers. Wow, I wish, and let me just give you a wow, 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 wow. I think that's circulated. Thank you very much. And I wish to meet every one of you in person to connect more with you. So wish you all a very good night rest. Enjoy the rest of the night. I love you. SSN love you. Abuja FCT Advocates love you. Bye.